I upload daily NBA videos, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. Also, if you haven't yet, there is a new episode of my NBA series on the first round of the playoffs, so go check that out if you haven't seen it already. The Oklahoma City Thunder have been one of the most interesting teams in the league over the past few years. After Kevin Durant left, we got the MVP campaign, then Sam Presti traded for Paul George, then Paul George got a call from Kawhi Leonard and said, "Okay, see you later." In the process, the Thunder got back $1 million first and Shay Gilgeous-Alexander, then Russell Westbrook asked out, so they got $1 million more first and Chris Paul. Then this season for the Thunder, they were the NBA Cinderella story as Chris Paul was amazing before the Heat took that title from them. And as a result of that, this offseason Chris Paul was traded for, guess what? More first-round picks. Trading Chris Paul for a Suns first-rounder and Kelly Oubre. Then they traded Kelly to the Warriors for another first-round pick. So that was the end of Kelly in OKC. Hate to see you go, but love to see you walk away. And then they traded Dennis Schroeder for Danny Green in a first, then traded Green for Al Horford and a first. And I assume that soon Sam Presti will be trading his mother for another first-round pick. And with this many first-round picks, 17 over 6 years, there's really just no way that OKC fails to, at the very least, make a good team within the next few seasons. It's nearly impossible to miss out on that many picks. But unfortunately for the 2021 season, first-round picks cannot suit up and actually play for you. So the OKC Thunder are not going to be very good next year. However, I also don't think they're going to be as bad as many people are expecting them to be. It seems the consensus opinion based on the comments of my last 3 power rankings / team preview videos is that many people believe the Thunder are going to be the worst team in the league. I do not feel this way, but they're also not going to be very good. So let's just talk about it.
Absolutely incredibly with the acrobatic alley-oop.
Let's go over the depth chart for OKC. At point, we have George Hill. At 2 is Shay Gilgeous-Alexander. 3, I have Dort, though I could see them putting Trevor Ariza in there instead. Darius Baisley at the 4, though I could see them putting their rookie Poku there. And at center, of course, is Al Horford. Off of the bench, we have Ty Jerome at point, Hamidou Diallo, Justin Jackson, Trevor Ariza, and Poku. And yes, I did write Justin Jackson twice for the reserves, and I didn't change it because I am lazy. Deal with it. Looking at these players, at point, George Hill was one of the best 6 men in the NBA last year. On the Thunder, he will be a good floor spacer and defensive guard and a capable second ball handler next to Shay. And eventually, I imagine he will be a great floor spacer, defensive player, and ball handler for another team once he is traded for more picks. Shay Gilgeous-Alexander is, of course, the current face of the OKC Thunder. He's the best player on the team and the young star that's going to be getting a majority of the media's attention this year. Last season, he managed to average 19 points per game despite playing with 3 other players averaging 17 or more points. And naturally, many people are looking at that and saying, well, now Shay is going to average 28 points or something like that because all 3 of those guys are gone. However, while that might be the case, I don't think that's actually going to be a good thing for him, and his efficiency will be sacrificed in the process. Shay's ceiling to me is not as high as many people have made it out to be. I think he's a future all-star, but I don't expect him to be better than a alright second guy on a championship team, and if I had to predict, I would say he's more likely to be a great third guy. A guard who is just an okay three-point shooter, not a playmaker, and just an okay defensive player, I can't imagine has top 20 player in the league potential really, unless he really hammered out those weaknesses, of course. But I do expect this year he will average around 24-ish points per game on probably a little bit below league average efficiency, and hopefully Chris Paul's leadership will have rubbed off on him to make him an adequate first option, at least to be not completely abysmal. I gotta stop saying that word because half of the comments last video were about how much I say the word abysmal. So Gonna take a mental note there. I don't mean to come off as too negative here for Shay because I think he's gonna be good. I just feel there are some people who have acted like he's the messiah when no, he's not. I put Lou Dort as a starting small forward, which I imagine would confuse a good amount of people, being that Dort is only 6'3". However, he is also 215 pounds, which is 3 less pounds than the league average weight, and he has a 6'9" wingspan, and he played great defense on James Harden, which makes me think that he can defend most small forwards. Although now that I'm saying this out loud, 6'3" with 220-ish pounds, I guess I could play small forward in the NBA. And also, the other options are a semi-washed Trevor Ariza or Justin Jackson, who might be 6'7", but I promise you would be worse defensively than Lou Dort. So I think Dort is the guy at 3, and I don't think it's that crazy to suggest, but as I said earlier, I could also see them going with Trevor Ariza, maybe trying to increase his value for a trade. Darius Baisley is a stretch 4 who in the regular season part of the bubble averaged 13 points and 6 rebounds and shot 46% from 3 on over 5 attempts per game. Now, this is just an 8-game sample size, however, this is also the first and only time in his NBA career thus far where he has been given consistent minutes, so I don't necessarily think it's an outlier. I think this is a sign that he can be a legit shooter for this team, and he's one of the players on this team that I would definitely keep an eye on. Then at the 5, we have Al Horford, and Al, I think, is one of the most interesting players in the NBA heading into next season, which is weird because Al Horford and interesting have never really been associated with each other. The amount of people that think that Al Horford is straight up washed is truly ridiculously high, because the guy was just not a power forward, and everyone knew that except for Elton Brand, apparently. He also wasn't even bad statistically speaking in Philadelphia at power forward. In fact, he essentially averaged the same numbers that he did when he was an all-star 2 years ago. Al is still one of the best centers in the league, and him showing his value again is one of the main reasons why I don't think OKC will be the worst team in the NBA. Him and Shay, I expect to have a similar big guard chemistry to what he did with Kyrie Irving and Isaiah Thomas. Those pick and roll duos were both great in Boston, and I imagine we'll see something at least semi-similar to that in Oklahoma. But it's with the bench unit where things start to get rough for this team. Ty Jerome was garbage in his rookie year. Diallo can't do anything really besides for dunk. Justin Jackson is just a shooter who shoots 32% from 3 for his career, so he isn't even good at that. Trevor Ariza is still an alright player, but he's far from the king of 3-and-D forwards that he was a few years ago, and Poku, as I'm calling him because yeah, not going to try and pronounce a name like that, he is a 7-footer with a lot of creating ability, both as a shooter and a ball handler, and he's pretty good defensively. He's basically in the unicorn archetype as a 7-footer, which is often hit or miss. Athletically, he's nothing special in the leaping department, but he is agile with a good amount of skill. He's definitely a wait-and-see guy, but I could definitely see him being a very good player if he lives up to his potential. So this roster is obviously considerably different from what it was last year, and also considerably worse. However, as I previously stated, I don't expect them to be as bad as a lot of other people do. With Al Horford and Shay as kind of the foundation of this offense as that pick and roll duo with Al Horford's playmaking, I think this can be a pretty solid offense on top of the fact that everyone on the court besides for Lou Dort, nice rhyme right there, can space the floor in the starting lineup. If Shay and Al Horford develop the chemistry that I do think they can, then it's going to be a solid duo. And with George Hill and Darius Baisley spacing the floor at an elite level, they should have plenty of room to accommodate it, and the defense should be pretty okay as well. Hill is a pretty damn good defender, Shay is a pretty alright one, Lou Dort has already proven himself to be an elite defender, Baisley isn't really one way or the other defensively, and then Al Horford is a fantastic defensive player as well. So starting lineup wise, I think this OKC team is actually pretty solid, and they can be decent on both sides of the ball, but there are a couple of issues that is holding this team back. One of the biggest ones is the horrible bench unit, and then after that, a lack of shot creation outside of literally just Shay Gilgeous-Alexander. Just Shay Gilgeous-Alexander. That's it. He is quite literally the only guy in this team who can consistently take his man off of the dribble and create offense. George Hill can do it from time to time, and Al Horford isn't too bad in the post. But that is the only one-on-one offense that exists on this team. And in the playmaking department as well, George Hill has not averaged more than 3 assists in the last 3 years as he's become more and more of a 3-and-D player. Shay is not a playmaker, and I feel like he's going to be forced to be, even though he's really not good at that. Dort obviously isn't, Baisley isn't, no one in the bench unit is. Al Horford is a great playmaker at a 5, but that's it. So this team is going to be relying on a third-year guy who previously offensively was sharing the floor with, at times, 2 other ball handlers to be the only real ball handler, only real shot creator, and in the playmaking department, they are relying on like a 49-year-old center. On top of that, their new head coach does not have any experience in the NBA, which certainly is not doing this team favors. So while I do think there are worse teams in the league, I also sure as hell don't expect this to be a good team. On top of everything else I just said, I would not be shocked to see George Hill and Trevor Ariza traded at some point in the regular season. Ariza definitely because he's on a 1-year contract, but he's on that 1 year. George Hill is on a 2-year, and he's making the amount of money that he is actually worth, and combined they make up $24 million for a trade for a bad contract in exchange for a first-round pick. And if Sam Presti so much as sniffs a first-round pick, he's gonna trade for that shit. But that's the Thunder. I think they're going to be better than some say, but what those some are saying is that they're gonna be the worst team in the league, so better than that is not a high bar. However, with how many first-round picks that Sam Presti has acquired over the last couple of seasons, this team's future is incredibly bright. It's just, at the moment, first-round picks can't play for you, so the Thunder are not going to be very good next year. But shout out to Rudy for editing this video. Go check out that My NBA video if you haven't yet. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the action music.